Hello, my name is Rachel Chaddock and I am the guest chef for Placer Grown for the month of December, and I'll be making you a Mandarin Curd creme brulee, which will be using things from Placer County. That's what we're all about. So even the eggs are coming from Placer County and all of this beautiful produce. So we're going to start by the Mandarin Curd because that's going to chill before we do the brulee. What you need is 2 mandarins, just average sized mandarins, and then something sour. You need something to kind of cut the sweetness of the mandarin. You can use a lemon. My lemons are in right now, but that's going to be a little too sweet. So these are called Limequats. You can get them at the market. They're a cross between a lime and a kumquat, which makes sense. They are edible. You can just bite right into them and chew them, but I wouldn't. It's very, very sour. It is exactly what we need for this recipe. So we have those there. So with any kind of curd, it's a mixture of eggs and sugar, and you want to combine those together first and turn those into a paste. The reason you do that is that if you were to just say put lemon juice straight into your egg yolks like this, you would have a good chance of curdling them. So the sugar will act as kind of a strengthener to those egg yolks, and you're looking at 4 egg yolks here. I know farmers market eggs can sometimes be a little different size, so if you want to be absolutely technical and some of your eggs are smaller, you're looking for about 1 large egg yolk is about 0.6 ounces. So for this recipe, you'd need 2.4 ounces of egg yolks, if that helps. So we have the egg yolks and the sugar together. Next, we're going to zest. You need to use, if you can find one, a really fine microblade for your mandarins because they're tender. That's why we love them. The skin is thin. But that also means that when you try to use a coarser grinder, it's going to go right into the pith. So very, very gently, and you can just do this right in the mix. You just want to get most of the zest off. And you do not need to be obsessive about it at all. There could be patches that you did not get. That is not a problem. And there is just about 1. And then we'll do this one. And don't worry, we're doing the juice too, but this is another trick. Don't ever try to zest an empty mandarin. It doesn't work. I've tried it many times and it's always failed. So there's these 2. Okay, and then the limequat. If you cannot get limequat, which you can out of the market right now if you're going, but you can certainly use, a regular lime. These right here, this is a Kefir Lime, and you can get these at the market too. They're really famous for their leaves, but they're fantastic as far as just the zest. If you need that little hint of something, Thai food that's great for, oh my gosh. Okay, so here's that one. And then the last limequat. Thank you for your patience. Okay. It's always going to be underneath there, so just, use your fingers, it's easier. Just wash your hands a lot. Okay, so you'll go ahead and mix that zest in. And then you'll squeeze the juice in. And after that, we're going to be putting this on a double boiler. And I know the word double boiler, it sounds a little intimidating, and it's not. All it really is you're just putting a layer of insulation between what you're cooking and the heat source. That's what that water does. So really, you're just helping your cooking along and making it safer, and that's going to be a good thing. So you can get an official double boiler, and I have one here, but you can also just use a small pot. Oh, look at that seed go in there. Look at another seed go in there. Just use a small pot and a stainless steel bowl on top of it, and you will be just fine. You don't have to worry about buying an actual double boiler. Although my mom has given me 2 at this point. So if you need one, you can contact me. I would avoid using glass bowls with your double boiler. I have broken 3 so far. The heat, if you have a crack in there, whatever, the heat cannot take it. So just go for stainless steel or get the double boiler. But it's really nice to use. I use it for these kind of projects. I use it a lot for frostings when I'm doing cakes. I use it anytime I want to just cook something carefully and slowly that I'm worried that I'm going to burn. And sometimes I use it when I'm being lazy and I'm trying to heat something up and don't want to watch it. So they really have a place in our kitchen. And that was some really good seed catching there. Unfortunately, unlike mandarins, kumquats have lots of seeds. Okay, let me give my hands a quick wash. Or stir this first and give them a quick wash. So that is all together, and because you got your eggs and your sugar mixed together, it's less likely that all of that acid from the citrus is going to make you a big curdly mess. This is going to go on top of the double boiler that we will have going in 1 second as soon as I wash my hands. And this is precisely what I'm talking about. This is a real double boiler. You see, it's got 2 pans. It fits one right into the other very neatly. It's also a little extra stuff you have to store. So if you don't want to bother with that, use about 1 inch of water. You just want to make sure that the pan that you're using is not going to dunk into the water. As long as the bottom doesn't touch, you are great. What you'll do is you'll put the pan onto your stove. You let it come to a boil first, this amount of water. Turn it down to a simmer. Once it's simmering, you'll just cook it right like this. Stir it every so often. You'll see a lot of recipes that will tell you that you need to stand here and babysit it, and you really don't. I mean, you can, within reason, you can certainly leave it. It's going to take about 10 minutes. It's going to look a lot like thickened sour cream. I think the best way to give you a visual of what you want is if you were to put a spoon in after 10 minutes and dip it out. The back will be completely covered. You can you can push your finger through the back of the spoon and it will leave a very clear trail. That's when you know that it's ready. It's still going to be liquid because you aren't done with it yet. So once this has come to that point, okay, so we'll get this double boiler out of the way. You would put this on a towel of some sort. You have over to the side, if you had the recipe, you would have about 6 tablespoons of room temperature butter. And this is where the magic really starts to happen. So you put these in one at a time. And I know that's going to be difficult. You don't feel like doing that. You're going to do it anyway because you don't want to bring down the temperature of your curd too fast. You put them in one at a time and they will continue to melt. It really doesn't take that long. And then when you're done, you have this beautiful, glossy, wonderful curd. After all of the butter is in, you put plastic wrap down. You want to put it all the way down against the curd so that it's going to not form a skin because that's gross. And then put it in the refrigerator to cool completely. That could take 2 to 3 hours optimally. You really want it to get nice and cool before you use it anymore. And what you have when you're done with that is something that looks much more like this. So this is half of the butter is in it and this is where it's thickened. You can see the Mandarin curd, the zest from the mandarin is all through this. It's a beautiful golden color, and that it just isn't from the mandarin juice, that's from the eggs as well. The egg yolks will really darken that up. So these are good. What we would do with these is just put them in the refrigerator and let them cool. The next thing that we're going to do is work on the creme brulee part because you're done with your curd. That can sit to the side. And this is actually very simple as well. And let me grab that pan. Creme brulee actually just means burned cream. That's all it is. It's a French dish. And a lot of people feel like French dishes are going to be more complicated, but they kind of are forgetting the temperament of the French when they say that. The French are not really all that complicated. They just want to eat good food and have a good time. So here with your creme brulee, the first thing, and it's very small, the ingredients are cream, eggs, sugar, vanilla, salt. That's it. And most people have those. And if you don't have cream, you can use half and half. You can use milk, but we're being French, so we're going to use the cream. So that goes into your bowl, and you're going to make sure you're not going to be impatient. You are going to make sure that you put this on the stove at a low heat just until it starts to get hot. You don't want it to boil. You certainly don't want it to get skin on it. It just wants to be hot because you're going to be doing some very slow cooking of the eggs. So we'll get this out of the way. And here we have 5 egg yolks. Once again, we have a lot of egg whites after this recipe. So we have the 5 egg yolks and 1/2 cup of sugar. If you had a vanilla bean, I'm sorry, I forgot to say this. If you had a vanilla bean, you would have put it in the cream at this point. But since we're not using a vanilla bean today, after that comes off, you can either use vanilla extract or you can use a vanilla bean paste. Just make sure that you adjust for the intensity of that. So it would be a teaspoon of vanilla or a quarter of a teaspoon of vanilla bean paste would probably be fair. Or, you know, 1 vanilla bean if you happen to have one. I need to grab a fork. Oh, this will work. Okay, so here we have your 5 egg yolks, and you just want to break them up. This makes it easier to stir. They don't fight too much. Then this is half a cup of sugar. We've got our cream heating back there. And now I'm going to introduce you to something called tempering. And tempering is not scary, I promise. It actually makes a lot of sense. So what you do is we've got cold eggs here and hot cream back there. If I were going to just dump the cream into the cold eggs, I would have sweet scrambled eggs. And that's, I mean, I'm from Alabama, but we don't do that. And so what we're going to do instead is you introduce a little bit of the heat to the cold. And some people will say, you know, I've read recipes where it says pour in a quarter cup at a time, pour in however much at a time, and you don't have to be even that big about it if you don't want to. You can do 1 spoon at a time. So you put the hot cream into the egg mixture and you stir that up. And there's 1. That's not going to hurt it. So then you do another one. And you keep mixing up, and by doing this, you're raising the temperature of the eggs so that when we put it back in that cream, they won't scramble and turn into all kinds of strange things. The recipe will say to do about a quarter of the cream into the milk before you're done. That's going to be half a cup or so. But really, once it's starting to look warm and creamy, I would say 8 spoonfuls. If you're really going to go by the spoonful, that will be perfect. Once it is at that state, it's also much easier to stir, which is a bonus. You would add this back into your hot cream. And then you would mix this all together. And at this point, this is your creme brulee. This is it. You put your vanilla in, and this is the mixture. It does not go back on the stove. You don't need to heat it anymore. Your sugar had already dissolved because of the tempering and the heating with this. So this is where you actually would be putting it into the ramekins and starting it from there. So my next step, you might be better at pouring than I, and I am not very good at it. So just to save yourself some grief, I recommend putting your mixture into something with a spout so that you do not make a giant mess. We have our cream poured into our pitcher that's ready to go into the ramekins. So I'll need to get all of our curd out of the fridge, but first I need to clean up my mess a little bit because this is hard to work in. Okay, so there, that's better. So what I'm going to be doing here is I'm getting the curd that we made earlier. It's been chilling for about 2 hours. So it's going to be nice and set. I've also got 2 ramekins already in the fridge. And so these are also really set. That you can choose up to yourself as far as whether you want leftover curd. You can distribute all the curd among your ramekins, or you can and chill it that way, or you can chill it in a bowl and save some for yourself, which is usually what we do. So we'll just put this very cold curd back in the bottom of these ramekins. And I would say you're using about, it's over a quarter of a cup, probably more like, I don't know, a third of a cup. You're just covering the bottom of these ramekin dishes. And this looks like an 8-ounce ramekin. You can do this in any size that you want. I've done this in 6-ounce ramekins. I've done this in coffee cups. If you just have a round container that is, will be more or less uniform shape, you can make a creme brulee in absolutely whatever. So now I'm going to get a little bit cute. And I do apologize for this, but if you don't want to just sploosh your Mandarin curd all over the place, you're going to kind of pull a bartender drink trick and pour it very gently over the back of a spoon. And it is cute, and it is a little extra step, but you know, you did have the spoon right there. And plus you can pour it on your finger as well. But that way it doesn't just make a canyon in the middle of the curd, which it would if you just poured it straight in from the spout. And I speak from experience. Okay, so we're gonna do these 3. What would happen next? There's always a prayer one as well. Okay, so what would happen next at this point is now they're gonna go into the oven. If you were to put the custards into an oven just straight into the baking sheet, you would scald them at the bottom before they ever cooked. So what you're doing, and see, I'm going to sound fancy again, you're making a bain marie. And I did it that way because my grandmother is French, so that was for you, Feeny. It's a bain marie, and it's basically, it just means a water bath. And it's sort of like all these little guys are going to be snuggling in warm water so that way they don't burn, and they cook slowly and they cook at the same consistency. And that's all that means. So we have hot water right here that has been boiling and has been kept warm, which is fantastic. You need to fill it, and this isn't hard, just get close and you won't splash. Fill it to about halfway up the ramekins. And you don't have to be perfect, halfway-ish. You're just trying to give them a break, really. These are going to go into the oven for anywhere between 30 and 40 minutes. You're looking for the top to not jiggle much, but just a little bit of a jiggle. You will hear purists say that you must be very concerned about your creme brulee. You can't have any bubbles on it. But remember, we're covering it with sugar and burning it, so nobody's gonna know. So put this in the oven. We happen to have some that are ready, so let me get these in first. Now, we had these made already. So these have been chilling for a long time, and that's really important at this point. I would chill them overnight, really. And I tend to rush things, and I tend to scramble, but make it cold, because otherwise it will not brulee for you. And this is the most fun part of this entire dessert, is the fire. So what you do, now that they're nice and cold, for the brulee, just take a spoonful and just kind of, sprinkle it on there. If you get too much, I let my kids help me with this. If you get too much, it's not a problem. You just shake it. Now, I am using my kitchen torch for this. I've asked for a real blowtorch for Christmas. But if you don't have either of these things, absolutely put your oven on broil. Just put the baking tray in your oven as high as it can go. And turn it up to 500, but watch it, because sugar burns very, very quickly. And please do not touch it. I feel like the sugar burn that you get in restaurants, I feel like that's a mistake you make one time and you never do it again. So you see that I've got the flame pretty close. Some are getting kind of dark. That's okay. We call that delicate brown in my family. But you just want to make sure you've got all the sugar. And again, that one again, little dark. That would be my Nana's. We call that Nana style. And it goes really fast. So that is molten. Don't touch it. Don't see if it's getting hard. You do not want to do that. It's not a regular burn. It's a burn that just lingers and it stays with you. So do not touch that. So this time I'm going to go a little more slowly and do it, Europeans think that we Americans don't cook things enough, that we do things too light. So I'll do this one American style. I read that. I do not know if it's true. But really, how fun is this? And then you have a wonderful shell. I'm going to do one more because I want to let this one to cool enough so you can see how this turns out. Because I did say that there was a surprise in this creme brulee, and there is. I have made this style of creme brulee lots of different ways. This started because I used leftover cranberry relish, or cranberry sauce rather, that we had from Christmas. I didn't know what to do with it. I'd already made muffins with it. I'd already put it on ice cream. I guess I'd gotten exuberant making cranberry relish. So what I ended up doing is I put it on the bottom of a creme brulee and served that for, I don't know, for some holiday. It was probably Christmas. And it worked so well. All I did was just put cranberry relish on the bottom, just like we put the curd on the bottom, put the base, the cream base on top of that, and just bake it. And it was wonderful. It was a layer, and it was so good, and it stayed right at the bottom. However, I'm not sticking my finger in that. One neat thing that happens with these brulees, let's see. You ready? Not quite. Now, well, now I just have to talk creme brulee for a minute. Did you know, in my family, we refer to creme brulee as freedom pudding? Because back during Desert Storm, there was the whole French fry joke where you had to call them freedom fries and all of that. And I grew up in Alabama. You may be able to hear it or you may not. But so it hit the South pretty hard. But there was a Saturday Night Live skit where they were talking about all of this and had the president in the Oval Office demanding his freedom pudding. But nobody knew what he meant because he was trying to say creme brulee, but had to say freedom pudding instead. So that's what we call it in my house. That one's prettier too. And creme brulee does say mean burnt cream, so I'm still right on here. Okay, now we're getting what I want. Usually you need to be more patient, and I would really give it 5 minutes before I break into this, but I really wanted to see what this trick was. So in this creme brulee, as I said, we've got the vanilla, we have the Mandarin curd, and the Mandarin curd was on the bottom when we did this. But through the magic, the Mandarin curd has risen to the top. And so that way you have the mandarin flavor first, and then underneath it you've got that really, really creamy vanilla creme brulee underneath that. And I'm going to eat this because I can't not. It tastes a lot like a creamsicle. It is really, really good, and I hope you enjoy it. And thank you so much for joining me with my freedom pudding. I'm Rachel Chaddock. Thanks again.